Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Shifting Lanes. My name is Hanson. Thank you so much for tuning in. And for this video, you find me sitting in the 2020 Mitsubishi Outlander Sport. This one's the 2.4 liter, so this is the GT with all-wheel control. That's their all-wheel drive nomenclature. And for this video, I want to share with you my likes and dislikes about this subcompact crossover so that you can get a better idea before you visit the dealership, before you take it out for a test drive, and before you buy. Alright, let's get started with my likes, and the first one is the exterior redesign. So for the 2020 model year, they've undergone a new facelift. It looks a lot less goofy, it looks a lot more aggressive, and they've also implemented a lot more LED lighting. So LED headlights, LED taillights, and also LED fog lamps. LEDs are just so much better, they're much more reliable, and I think they're a lot safer compared to the halogen counterparts. I also like the engine in here. This is the 2.4 liter. This is the big 4-cylinder engine, so it's making 168 horsepower and 167 pound-feet of torque. That's a good amount of power for a subcompact crossover like this. It is peppy, so I never really found any struggles when I'm trying to accelerate and trying to overtake anyone on the highway. And the next thing I like is the warranty. So this has the 10-year, 100,000 mile warranty. So that matches Hyundai's and Kia's industry-leading warranty. Of course, that only applies for powertrain-related parts. You do also have a 5-year, 60,000 mile new car warranty. And just be aware that that powertrain warranty only applies to the original owner. So if you are looking at these cars on the secondhand market, that bumps down to 5 years and 60,000 miles, which matches almost all other car manufacturers' warranties. And lastly, what I like about this car is that it is packed with a lot of features. And if you're shopping around and you have a big long checklist of stuff that you'd like in a car, then this crossover is going to check off a lot of those boxes for you. That all sounds great, but just because this car has all those different features doesn't mean that it's actually any good. And this is where my list of dislikes can begin. First of all, this car feels a little bit on the cheap side. You know, a lot of car companies like to give you the illusion that you're sitting in a much more expensive car, but in the case of the Mitsubishi Outlander Sport, it is what it is. It doesn't try to lie to you. This is a budget-oriented vehicle, and a lot of the surfaces in here just don't feel very nice to the touch. They look low rent. The steering wheel here, even though they say that this is leather-wrapped steering wheel, it just doesn't feel very comfortable to the touch. The shifter doesn't feel nice. The seats aren't very good. There's also weird design things in general that feels very outdated, feels like it's a shortcut in design. So for example, there's this weird rubber mat thingy that completely comes off of the where you can put your hand on here. And I'm guessing they have this just to kind of hide some of the fasteners to secure this trim onto the door, but again, this is just a cheap rubber piece that you will most likely lose upon, the first maybe couple of months of ownership of this car. So again, just weird things like this. There's also this 12-volt plug, which is reminiscent of the old cigarette lighter, but this is just a plastic piece. Again, something that you're going to lose immediately. And the steering column also has the old slot where you could put a key in, except that it's been plugged away. And lastly, the seats. I'm not a big fan of the seats. They call this their soft touch material, which it is soft. It is a seat, but I don't find this very comfortable to sit in for long periods of time. The driver's side has a 6-way manual adjustment, so you could adjust fore and aft, up and down, and also the tilt of the backrest. The passenger side is only 4-way adjustable, but overall the design of the seat is just not comfortable. There's no lumbar support in here, and I found that in my 2-hour road trip the other day, I was just a little bit too tired after sitting in here for a while. It's just not a comfortable seat. A lot of that tiredness, I think, came from this crossover's rough ride. Suspension is a bit stiff, and these seats just aren't supportive enough to help absorb some of those road imperfections. Steering is also very lackluster here. It's very vague. Sometimes it feels like there are dead zones, and sometimes it can feel very twitchy. It just doesn't feel like a precise machine. Steering wheel buttons are okay where they are, although the information button for displaying info on the instrument cluster is placed behind the steering wheel and kind of hidden away. But maybe that's for a good reason, because there's not a lot to show on the display screen here. and every time you press the button, there's this awful, unnecessary beeping tone. The center console is also pretty lackluster here. It's very simple in design, I'll give it to them for that. A lot of the buttons just scream cheap plastics. Like, for example, the HVAC dials here, I mean, this feels like a mayonnaise jar. And a lot of the button switches, even the heated seats, it feels like these are switches that you could buy from Radio Shack if they still existed. Moving on to the infotainment screen, this does have an 8-inch touchscreen, which is a decent size, but I just don't like the way it's angled. It just kind of catches every glare from every direction, so it's kind of hard to see when you're driving when it's a sunny day. But if you're able to see the screen, you'll also see that the infotainment system is kind of ugly. Browsing through menus is a clunky experience. Sometimes there's a back button, sometimes there isn't. That's okay though, because the silver lining here is that this does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so if you don't like the native infotainment system, you could always plug your phone in. The downside that I've run into is that when you want to use Apple CarPlay or switching into Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, you have to do it while the vehicle is stopped. And finally, this vehicle does have all-wheel drive, and you know that because there's this very prominent 4WD button on here, which I think is a missed opportunity to have something more functional on there, like a larger cubby hole or a better looking trim. Instead, there's this very large button that seems a little bit out of place. Moving around the exterior, you'll find some questionable styling decisions. There's fake vents everywhere. There's fake vents on the side. There's fake vents on the front bumper and also the rear bumper. There's also weird pieces of trim that doesn't seem to be functional at all. I mean, what is this thing? It is nice that there's power folding mirrors. So what is it like to drive in general? It's okay. It drives like any other crossover should, except for the issues I've mentioned already. It will fit 4 large adults a bit snugly. There's not a lot of leg room on the second row, but that's to be expected in a subcompact crossover. So overall, do I recommend the Outlander Sport? No. Even though this has a lot of features and it's also priced on the cheaper end, I just don't feel that you get very good value with the Mitsubishi Outlander Sport. You should totally test drive the other brands and test drive them back to back, and I think you'll find that the other cars may not feel more luxurious, but they'll feel much more refined and complete and offer a much better driving experience. Yes, this has a fantastic warranty, but Hyundai and Kia also has the same amazing warranty, so if you look at their subcompact crossover lineup, like the Hyundai Kona or the Hyundai Venue, or if you're looking at the Kia Soul and also their upcoming Kia Seltos, you'll find that they're also aggressively priced, and chances are they're going to have much better interiors compared to this Mitsubishi Outlander Sport. So there you have it. I'm going to wrap up the video right there. Hopefully you learned something from this video. If you did, please consider hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe, and also hitting that notification bell so that you can get notified anytime we make a new video. This has been the 2020 Mitsubishi Outlander Sport, and I'll see you next time.